Welcome back. So today we are going to do an upcoming release. This one is the OpenRock Link 20. So this is an open ear system, and even before we look at it, I'll kind of talk about a couple features that are a little bit different about this particular open ear and why it'll be of interest to certain people and why it's a little bit different than previous open ears that I've actually talked about. And kind of right on the case, or kind of right here on the top of the box, we can see what's very unique about this particular set. And it actually has a boom mic that is magnetically attached. They call it the magnetic sync system to the open rock, kind of the open ear style shelves out there. So yeah, kind of right off the bat, that is very different, something new and unique, and what's going to set this one apart. But also, along with that, I would say they call this one the open ear wireless office earbuds, right? So your traditional open ear has been really targeted to people doing maybe exercise outside or walking around. I always thought the indoors office space was actually a really, really nice match to open ears because you still need to have this environmental awareness around you. But the previous ones I think have been more about exercise and maybe even a gym, but really doing environmental awareness as you're walking around outside, still being able to hear your environment. So to have a company that's actually targeting office style earbuds, I thought was actually pretty unique. And we'll get into that kind of in the second half. But as you would expect, these are open ears. So the case is a little bit wider because it's actually making room for the microphone, which we'll look at in 1 second. But the shells themselves, kind of the open ear style, this is very familiar to those of you who've been following this particular style and design of sets. It looks very similar. What I will say, and something that I've actually talked about, is the porting on this particular dynamic driver is a little bit different than what I was expecting. It looks like a round dynamic driver, but it's actually the rectangular style dynamic driver, which I have, especially lately, I've been preferring the ones that have used the rectangular. I think it's just a better, more dynamic style sound. So yeah, so while this looks like a traditional round, kind of slightly ported open ear style, I will say it is a little bit different in that it actually is a rectangular driver. So, and again, on the bottom, we see these two magnetic contacts. That is how your microphone is going to attach. But the rest of it, I would say is very, very similar to your existing open ears or others that you may have looked at. The boom style microphone looks like this. And again, there's magnetic contacts there. Those are going to essentially snap in one way, this way. So as it is around your head or around your ear, this is going to be kind of angled more towards your mouth, and that's how it is going to work, how a traditional boom mic would work. So again, very, very cool design. We'll actually connect this a little bit later and we'll hear what it sounds like. But for now, I just wanted to talk about sort of what is different about Link 20, what they're really pitching towards, and it is slightly different than what traditionally I have talked about with open ear. So we'll get into that as well. But what is this one? Again, it's an open ear headset with this innovative detachable boom mic, which looks like that. And it does have some specs which are kind of up there in more modern style open ears as well. It is using Bluetooth 6.0. It does have app support, so they have their own app to control certain things on this. Like it actually has a Find My Buds capability. It does have EQ. It does have some presets on EQ. It does have different modes to support music mode. There's one actually called Beast Mode for exercising. There's a vocal mode. So a lot of things that you're traditionally looking for as far as customization are in the app as well. This one is IPX7, that is sweat resistance. They would call it 5 mic AI ENC for environmental noise cancellation. So two here, there's one, I think there's one and one. So two microphones here, and then they count this one as the other one. So it's 2 + 1, that is your 5. You get about 7 or 9 hours of talk time. Again, if you're using the microphone, you're going to use a little bit more battery on that. So I think it's 9 hours without the mic. I think it's 7 hours with the mic. 13 hours of music. You get a 5-minute quick charge, and that will get you about 1 hour of talk time. And if you use the batteries in here in combination with the recharging battery in the case, you'll get about 52 hours in total. So what is this one really? And I think what I would say is you take what was great about this open ear style design that I've talked about on a few different brands and styles. the ability to have that environmental awareness while listening to music, and you pair that with a more work specific microphone, the microphone, and call quality enhancements. And that's essentially what you're getting on Link 20. And that's why it's a little bit different. They're just kind of leaning what was a design that already worked and then just pitching it more towards this office style earbud. So on the play side, for listening to music, I think on earlier over the ear styles, this indirect audio path, and again, if you're not really familiar with it, I would call it the indirect audio path in that this speaker isn't necessarily right over your ear canal. It's going to be offset up a little bit. So it tends to do this indirect audio path. Don't think about this. You wouldn't want to try to jam that into your ear canal. It's really meant to sit over your ear canal. So you still have this situational environmental awareness. So, but what really happened with that was it kind of led to, a little bit of a detraction or decrease in sound quality because it is slightly above your ear. That led to slightly compressed sound, not really as extended at either end. So the little bass was kind of a little short and the treble was a little bit harder to hear. But as I was just talking about, this is my second rectangular driver. This one's a 15 by 10 millimeter. And I would generally say that at least these two that I've heard, they've been an improvement over providing a richer and more dynamic sound, even when over some of the actual more ported designs. Again, the port on this one isn't so prominent as I was really expecting, but I would say that the compensation to that is the rectangular driver doesn't really need as much of a directional port. It seems, for me, it's just kind of a better style driver for these particular open ear style sets. And you can't ignore the design, which is allowing for more environmental awareness. But each revision that I've tried is a refinement on improving the overall sound quality and clarity. And these are being tailored towards this indirect audio path. And just remember, there's always going to be a trade-off. These were really meant to hear your environment and music kind of at the same time, but the priority is really going to be hearing your environment and providing audio. But again, it's really for hearing the environment and having an awareness of that. And like other models that I've actually tried, there are sound presets like I talked about. There's a music mode. There's actually a beast mode for more bass, and EQ. You can actually adjust that manually, and those will boost the lower end for music, or you can narrow it for vocal modes. And I think this is the path that most sets are doing. So not a surprise that OpenRock Link 20 took this path as well. They have nice presets for music, but then this one, again, is going to be focused, has a couple presets that are specifically focused for calls, or vocal mode is what they would call it. So yeah, again, I think the path to enhancing the sound quality on all of these sets through software is probably the better idea than trying to come up with better ports or angle it a little bit more. It's just a little bit easier to do these things in software. And I would say, does brain burn work on these? And I think absolutely. So I talked about this trade-off and how it may sound a little bit compressed and not as extended. And I 100% kind of agree with that. I think when you first put these on, especially if you are used to in-ear style TWS or wired in-ear monitors, I think these will sound a little bit different, but let them sit on your ear and enjoy the music for a while, and your brain will start to adjust to it. And that's brain burn. But the more you listen to it, the more you kind of commit to this style, the better it will sound to you as your brain adjusts to it and your ears adjust to it. So do stick with it, do use it, and then you'll sort of figure out that it has a particular sound to it, style to it, but it will actually work for you, and it plays music quite well, especially with this new driver type. So that is kind of the fun part of it, the music part of it. So now I will actually attach the mic to it, and we'll kind of hear what this style of microphone on this will actually sound like, and I'll try to record that, and we'll take care of the business end of this style review. Okay, we are back, and I've actually attached the boom microphone to the other earphone. So now we are listening to my voice through their microphone and being recorded on my phone. So we will talk about some of these work issues and why, again, this one is a little bit different. It does do the play style, like if you're just walking around listening to music. I think lots of open ear do that well. Some of the things that are more custom tailored to the work side, the office environment, I think actually work as well here too. And I'll admit that open ear styles have mostly refined sound quality over time, right? I've tried numerous versions of open ear. They've all kind of refined, especially this little bit right here, where, like I said, that ported speaker, trying different driver types, trying to port that more towards your canal. trying to adjust the swing or the arc of the actual ear hook. I think there's been a lot of refinement over trying to get this to sound more like an in-ear style or more like a TWS style. But that has been primarily the focus of a lot of these brands over time, has been, the sound quality. So Link 20 sort of changes that focus and says, well, we're going to focus on call quality, environmental noise cancellation, the battery life, and quick charge. All these things that you might need in an office environment, the office earbuds, things that you don't maybe not necessarily going to use outdoors if you're only exercising for an hour or two. But if you have to use these for lots of calls or your daily music, listening to music at your desk and taking calls and all these things, you do need to focus on some other things as well. But think about an office environment where you're listening to that music, like I was just talking about. You're still able to hear your surroundings. You can still hear your coworkers kind of chatting away, but then you can make a call at the same time and still have this environmental awareness if someone calls your name. Or maybe you're in an airport or other situation where the environment is important. You don't want to miss your flight. So, again, a lot of the things that worked on the play side of having that environmental awareness of being in a gym or outdoors, and whether you need to hear cars coming behind you or someone calling your name. All these things tend to work in an office environment as well. You don't want to tune out the whole office. You don't want to tune out the world. You still want people to be able to say, hey, can you take care of this, and still be able to respond to them without saying, hang on, let me take out my earbuds and all that stuff. And the same thing with calls, right? It's nice to be able to just wear these without taking them off to take a call, to make a call. Again, I think that they just kind of hammered on refining this workflow so it sort of works a little bit better in office environments. And to be honest, this is where I've always seen open ear fitting, right? If I want to tune out the world, like I said, I'll use TWS with ANC. Adaptive noise cancellation tunes out most people. You can do some voice modes, but for the most part, it's going to tune everything out. If I want to have some awareness while I'm wearing TWS, I think transparency mode kind of works well. But if I really need to have environmental awareness where I don't want any blockage of my environment, I want to basically hear everything and have some music at the same time and still be able to hear people in cars and voices. Open ear is actually a better solution for that. And it is more like just having some music, but being able to hear everything around you. It's just a different style of enjoyment or passive music listening compared to what your TWS is. So again, I would say that something that Link 20 did differently than all the rest is a little kind of refining this little workflow, whereas most other ones are going to be on the play side of making music a little bit more enjoyable. And it's nice to have a brand kind of focus on using these indoors and in an office, and that always was very natural for me using these indoors as well. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and I will see you next time.